Hello, I'm Kelly Cody, and welcome to week 2 of our 52-week baking challenge. Today we're going to be making a very basic layered cake. And so in fact, it's so basic there's only 5 ingredients. All you're going to need: 12 tablespoons of butter, 3/4 a cup of sugar, 1.5 cups of self-rising flour, and that is important to use self-rising flour, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and 3 eggs. Now, a little bit of a trick on eggs. Whenever you're baking, you're going to find that it's almost always better to have them at room temperature. And room temperature occurs anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours after taking them out of the refrigerator. The exception to that is if your recipe calls for separated eggs. You're going to have an easier time separating eggs if they're still cold. So if you have separated eggs, separate them first and then let them warm up to room temperature. But for our cake today, we're just going to go ahead and get started with 3 room temperature eggs. Also, if you don't have self-rising flour, take a look at my how-to videos and you can make your own. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, once you have your ingredients set out, the equipment we're going to be using today is also very basic. We're going to be using 2 prepared cake tins, and if you want to learn how to prepare a cake tin, check out my how-to videos. And we're going to be using a bowl and a wooden spoon. That's it. Now, I personally prefer using a mixer when possible on cakes and cookies. I find that it gets me a better consistency, so that's what I'll be using. If you have a stand mixer or a hand mixer, absolutely feel free to use it. It's just an easier job for you, and it creates just as good of a bake as it does if you were doing it by hand. If you don't have those, a bowl and again a wooden spoon is all the equipment that you're going to need. So I'm going to get the bowl of my stand mixer over here. And the first thing I'm going to do is put in my butter, my sugar, and my baking powder. I've got those in my bowl, and I'm going to go over to my stand mixer, and we are going to cream these ingredients together. Now, creaming means that you are basically making the butter and the sugar one single ingredient together. And this can take anywhere from about 2 to 3 minutes. So go ahead, cream your butter and your sugar together, and I'll see you in a minute. As you're creaming your butter and your sugar together, you may find that your batter is creeping up the sides of your bowl. So all you need to do, if that happens, is take a spatula, scrape down the edges of the bowl, bringing all of the batter back into the middle. I'm going to just scrape my spatula off on the paddle that I'm using for mixing. Got all of my ingredients down at the bottom again. Tap off my spatula and put it back to creaming. Once you have fully creamed your butter and your sugar, you can go ahead and slowly add in the flour. Now I'm going to put my mixer at the absolute lowest setting. If I don't, flour will fly. So let me go ahead and I'm just going to put in a little bit of flour at a time, looking until we have it just combined with the butter and the sugar. Once you have fully creamed your butter and your sugar, you can go ahead and slowly add in the flour. Now I'm going to put my mixer at the absolute lowest setting. If I don't, flour will fly. So let me go ahead and I'm just going to put in a little bit of flour at a time, looking until we have it just combined with the butter and the sugar. So I'm just pouring it in. And the flour is in there. And it is looking like it's pretty well combined. So the next thing I'm going to do is add my eggs. Now I'm not going to pour all 3 of the eggs in at once. I'm going to put them in slowly, one at a time, so that they have time to incorporate into the mixture. So here we go with 1 egg. Alright. You will also find that this gives you a better bake at the end by combining them all at once. It ends up being a little too much for the flour and the rest of the batter to be able to absorb. But by putting them in one at a time, you can create a very consistent and light bake. There goes in the second egg. You'll notice that I cracked my eggs and I put them into a bowl before I use them. That way it ensures that if I do get any eggshell into my egg itself, I'm able to take it out before it goes into my batter. Alright, the second egg is not fully incorporated yet, so I'm going to wait a little bit longer for it. Okay, and here goes the third egg. And that is it. We now have all 5 of our ingredients into our bowl just mixing up. Now it's definitely a little bit more wet than it was, so I'm going to bring the speed up on my mixer to 3, letting it all mix. And I can also see again that the batter is creeping up along the edges of my bowl. So I'm going to turn the mixer off. And just as we did earlier, I'm going to bring my spatula and I'm going to scrape along the edges of the bowl to bring the batter down into the middle. I'm also going to scrape off the edges of my paddle because that sometimes gets a little, not quite everything gets mixed on there. All right, let's bring it back up and onto a number 3 again. And once it looks like everything is fully incorporated and is getting to become a bit of a, I guess the best way to say it is a soft mixture, you can see that it's been changing in consistency the more that we've beaten it. All right. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now the last thing that we're going to do, let me go ahead and stop that. We're going to pour our batter into our prepared tins. So I'm going to take roughly half the batter and just drop it into the base of the tin, and then do the same with the second. And let's see here. Now I am using the same spatula that I used previously just because I don't like messing up a lot of dishes. It's just more for me to have to clean up. But by all means, if the spatula that you chose is a little too small, as mine is turning out to be, go ahead and grab a larger spoon. Okay. Now, it's also important to keep in mind, especially with recipes like this where there's so few ingredients, we only have 5 ingredients, remember, that you want to have the best quality that you can possibly get. So whenever possible, I buy for the eggs, organic, farm-raised. I find that that gives me the best quality I can find. Same thing. Now, there's not milk in here, but obviously, if you use milk in your bakes, you want that to be organic. Happy cows make happy milk. And so I am just, with my spatula, spreading the dough as evenly as I possibly can. And it's a little tricky because everything is so very well buttered and floured that, of course, nothing wants to stick. We're going to come around here. Okay. And let me do this to the other pan. And again, just smoothing it out. If you have a spreader, by all means use that. You can see I'm just using, again, my same spatula over and over, right? And coming in here, spreading it to the edges. Now this batter, because of the relatively high amount of rising agents that we have from the self-rising flour, the baking powder, and the 3 egg whites from the eggs, it's going to puff up quite a bit in the center. So really make sure that you're getting your dough all the way to the edges when possible. Okay. All right, and making it as even as we can get. So I am pretty happy with both of those. So the last step is just to go ahead and put your 2 tins into your prepared oven. So this is going to be 350 degrees Fahrenheit, anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes for baking. Go ahead and check it at the 20 minutes. The toothpick test, of course, is a good first step. You stick a toothpick into the center of your cake, and if it comes out clean, that's a good sign. Also, press down on the top of the cake with your finger. If it springs back immediately, that means your cake is also done. So you've got a couple of tests there to check for doneness. So I will see you in about 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, my cakes came out of the oven after 23 minutes. Let's go ahead and check them for doneness. So I'm going to take a toothpick and I'm going to insert it into the deepest part of the cake. And then I'm going to pull it out, and you can see that the toothpick comes out nice and clean. The next step is to lightly press down on the top of the cake and watch and make sure that it bounces back. And in this case, it definitely did. So I'm going to let these cakes cool inside their tins for the next 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes or so. And then I'm going to flip them out onto cooling racks. So I've got 2 cooling racks set up and ready to go. And we're going to put them so that they end up being right side up because they have a nice little bit of a dome on the top of them, and we want to keep that. So if we were to put that side face down on the cooling racks, it might end up crushing that. All right, so we're going to take them out one at a time and slide this over. So we've got one of our cooling racks here, and what I'm doing is flipping the cake, and that came out nice and easy, just as we were hoping it would. That's wonderful. Happy to see that. And I'm going to put my cooling rack and then just flip it like that. All right, and I have stacking cooling racks, which is nice in an apartment kitchen. It saves space. All right, so the next one, we're going to do the exact same thing again. So I am flipping it out. Cake came out beautifully again. Didn't stick at all. Means we did a great job prepping it. And flipping it back over onto its side. Alrighty. So there we go. We're going to go ahead and let these cakes cool completely on the cooling racks. And after 20 to 30 minutes, I'm going to come back and check on them. Right, if I put my hand on it, it's still very, very warm. So when you can put your hand on it and it's cool, you're good to go. Another option, you can let them cool in a refrigerator, although in general, you don't want to keep your carbs in a refrigerator. It will change the structure of them and can make them seem a little dry or stale. So we're going to let them cool here on my counter, and I'll see you in another half an hour. Okay, now that our cakes are fully cooled, we're ready to go ahead and put them together. Now you can do anything you want when it comes to decorating a cake. You can make your own frosting, which is pretty easy, and we'll do that in a future week. You can certainly buy store-bought frosting, but what I'm going to do is one of my favorite ways to do a cake. It's very, very simple, very, very easy. So I'm going to take the bottom layer of cake and put it upside down on my cake platter. And so that way the top of it, the surface, is very, very smooth. Now I'm going to open up some jam that I bought today at the store. So again, I like the easy way on this one, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and put a spoonful of it on the cake and spread it around. We're going to put some more on there. And again, I'm just spreading it around until I'm happy with the consistency for myself. Now, I'm personally using Bon Maman Intense Strawberry Jam. I really like theirs. They use real fruit. It's less sugar than a lot of the other jams that you find on the market. And the flavors are just truly, really, really spectacular, I feel. All right, so again, you're just putting on to taste. And once you've got an amount that you're happy with, okay, I am pleased with how that looks. You're going to take the other half of your cake and leaving this one right side up. So the flat, smooth side is going to go down onto your jam. And that's it in terms of the filling. Now I'm going to take some regular sugar and just sprinkle it on top. And I am going to call that finished. So I cannot wait to see how your cake turns out. Go ahead and put a picture in the comments or leave behind a message just letting me know how it went. And I will see you next week for week 3 of our 52-week baking challenge. Have a great day, and I'll see you later.